Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome SAP NS2 Chief Executive, Mark Testoni.
Good morning. I'm glad they have the lights on so I can't see anything. It's the 7th year we've done this. And out in the hallway this morning, I saw an awful lot of familiar faces. Somebody talking to me? Oh, somebody's taking a cell phone call right at the front table here. Thank you very much. So, is there anything you want to share with everybody else? Okay, good. Now, I'm going, God, is somebody talking to my ear, but I don't have anything in my ear, so. There's technology all over me, but not in my ear. But thank you, everyone, for coming again today, and many of you. How many of you have been here more than 1 year? Yeah, I've been here more than 1 year, so it's good turnout. A little bit about SAP National Security Service before we get into the content here. We are an independent subsidiary of SAP, and really to focus on the U.S. national security space. But as we all know, given the environment in the last 10 years, that space has expanded to critical infrastructure. We've become one of probably the largest growing entity within the SAP ecosystem as a result. And we're really not your mother's SAP. The old days, SAP did what? We managed your supply chain. We paid your bills. We managed your human capital. We're not really your mother's SAP anymore. We're more like your millennial son's SAP. We're really focused on the data now. We can still do all those great things. So at NS2, what we've done is we've tried to take platforms and help in this whole data chase. And a lot of our discussion today is going to be around that. And we've extended our capacity through things, acquisitions and venture investments. If you're more interested in hearing about those things, when you're on breaks today, you'll see some of those solutions and some of our partners' things out there in the lobby. So take advantage of that. So I want to take, as we get into the content here, I want to take a step back down memory lane. Anybody remember those? Okay, so in 1977, was anybody alive in this room in 1977? Okay, so yes, I was alive. So I had just entered the United States Air Force, and I was an interface between two computers. I would take stacks of cards that didn't look too much different than those papers. Remember paper punch cards? Does anybody want to admit to that? I used to take 2 trays of those twice a week and walk them from one side of MacDill Air Force Base to another and interface them between a base supply computer and the regular base mainframe computer. I don't think anybody wants to admit to those kind of things. So what was cybersecurity in those days? What was the cyber threat? 2 things. Rain was a cyber threat. Those cards got wet, they wouldn't go in the machine. The other threat was cracks in the sidewalk. What if I tripped? So the point being, the reason I wanted to, in my lifetime, the transformation's been amazing. Think about what we have seen just in the last 40 years. We had computing since the late 1940s, but we really didn't, it was very transactionally based computing, and we stored kind of important information. Eventually it got to financials and things like that, but we couldn't search it really well. You remember there were like tape drives too? All these kinds of things. So let's talk a little bit about social media. Everybody thinks social media was kind of something that's new. Actually, it's been around for 1 million years. It started on cave walls, right? Anybody remember the classified ads? The personals? That was early social media, right? And then how about AOL Instant Messenger? RIP. Well, I guess it's still around today. Now what do we have? It's amazing. So in the old days, on cave walls, we had social media, but it wasn't particularly accessible, right? Much like those stacks of paper. Who could Google search stacks of paper like that? The security was in the fact that nobody could find anything if you really had to. Flash forward to today, we are creating data, as we all know, in an amazing fashion. A lot of it's driven by this, the quote, social media and all the things that are on us. Every year, I think I have a new device on me. Last year, I acquired an Apple Watch. So I think I have like 3 or 4 transmitting devices. I've got a car thing on me. I got my phone. We are all emanating all sorts of things. Everything we do, as we all know, is connected to the internet. It's really quite an amazing thing, not to mention the enterprise data that's being collected. But at the same time, not only are we doing, there's lots of goodness coming out of that from a standpoint of economics and all that. It's really been amazing, really, the last 30, 40 years, 30 years of the internet. The economic rise has been tremendous, but now we're beginning to see the parallel rise in adversaries trying to exploit it, which has gotten us, really created this new dawn of a new era that we're calling today the era of awareness. What does that mean? We have all this capacity and potential, okay? Just, I won't go through but just think about the things in our personal lives that we have because of devices like cell phones and watches. We live lives totally differently than I did back when I was carrying trade cards. But at the same time, there's a dark side to that too. There's a light side to that data and there's a darker side to it. When we were talking about, when Kristen mentioned, we're going to call this panel the dark side of data. The only thing I know about dark side goes back to 1972, the dark side of the moon, right? That's the dark side, right? But it's really true. I mean, with all this greatness that we've been able to create, the adversaries are tremendous. We're going to speak a lot about that today. The threat is getting closer to us. I mean, it's becoming real and personal. In 2000, almost said 1917. My God, even I wasn't around then. In 2017, we had the Equifax breach, right? Most of us in this room, if we're in the national security space, we're involved in the OMB breach. In the last year, we've had Cambridge Analytica, we've had tons of things like this. We're beginning to see, we've seen what's happened in the election cycle in the last few years and other things on social media where data is being weaponized. And it's done everything from potentially influencing elections to creating civil unrest. So this great data that's an asset can also be a threat. So in this era of awareness, not only is it the potential great, but we need to be aware of the threat and what our personal responsibility is in this kind of environment. So as we roll forward, we're at the dawn as part of this era of awareness of great technological advancement. Probably the most noteworthy, quantum computing, 5G, AI, we've all heard these things. I mean, all these are tools in the bag that we're competing against various parties to see who's going to ultimately use these the best and win, okay? So we go back to the 19th century, the US and the West really led the Industrial Revolution. If we flash forward to the 1990s, the US and the West and Asia to some degree led basically the innovation of the internet, right? This great, wonderful economic expansion. But over the next 15 to 20 years, with these new emerging technologies, particularly 5G, AI, who develops and uses them best is really going to determine who wins. Who's going to be the most dominant factors? We know there are state players. China, most noteworthy, investing huge amounts of money in these technologies. We need to maintain that leadership, much like we've done for the last 2 major revolutions, to ensure that we can maintain the right kind of lifestyle across this world, or lead in that regard. So, big stakes. So today we're going to be talking really about, you'll see panels on 2 things. One, the weaponization and the dark side of data, and the other, addressing these important technological things coming forward. So let me take a minute and go through the agenda. And let me stand right in front of it so you can't read it. But yes, we've had breakfast. Did everybody get breakfast? Okay. And I've done my 10 minutes of shtick. And we're going to have Bob work. Many of you know Bob, colleague. He sits on our advisory board now. Probably one of the most influential and impactful Deputy Secretary of Defense in many years. Has really led the way towards this new era of algorithms. From there, we'll go into that dark side discussion. We'll take a break. Please feel free to go out and see the technologies here. And from there, we'll get on to another tech discussion, a little bit more focused on some of the specific things that we're doing to support this space. And then we'll get into the quantum quandary, which gets really at the side of technologies. And then today we have, as we've done in the previous years, we'll talk a little bit about our veterans program, NS2 Serves. We have our current NS2 Serves class here today. Could I get them to stand up, please, and be recognized? Come on. You know, we've put some 220 people through this program now, and they all come out the other end with employment. We're going to get into that a little bit as business consultants around this industry for the most part. So we'll talk about that, and then last but certainly not least, probably the reason that most of you are here is to hear Right Honorable Tony Blair in a moderated discussion with Fran Townsend. So finally, I'd really like to thank our sponsors who've made this possible today. You can see them here, and some have been here a long time: AWS, Carahsoft, Intel, RTS, JTSI, VirtuStream, and the Cipher Brief. But without them, we wouldn't be able to do this today. We have a full house and a full room.